It's important to embrace who I am and to not be ashamed about who I am. And I am a father, I'm a good man, I'm a good husband, I do my best, and I also happen to have been to prison, had a drug addiction, have been sexually abused, physically abused as a child. I'm not ashamed of that. Hi, my name is Ryan McCormack, and this is my story of how I overcame drug addiction, alcoholism and child abuse. My story is that of child abuse and an addiction that emerged as a result, and the struggle with that until I found an abstinence-based recovery. And that journey is, for me, from the age of 3 to the age of 31. 31 is when I found permanent abstinent recovery, so free from drugs, and I was able to heal. My first sexual experience was in Ireland, and it was sexual abuse. It was by a lad who was a couple of years older than me, and for me that's the tragedy of that, because I reflect and think, well, what happened to that lad for him to be getting up to that at that age? So I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and it was in a public swimming pool changing room, and for whatever reason I didn't have it in me to say no, and I knew something was up because I felt it. I went over, and whatever happened happened. I didn't enjoy it, I didn't like it, and then what happened is from that point I changed as a person forever. So that was a secret. He said, don't tell anyone, and as a kid you do as you're told, and I didn't tell anyone, and I was devastated for a number of years. This lad continued, I didn't want to do it, he'd come around my house, it would just carry on, and it was horrible. Around the age of 11, 12, I had another experience where I was so physically beaten that from the neck down I was black and blue. I was completely traumatised for the experience, and on one occasion where it was one of the best days of my life, I left the home that I was staying in, throwing gravel up at my friend's window. Steve, his name is. We were best friends, and I'm like, come down, come down, come down. And it was the happiest of days because he saw it, and it was true. And I knew it was true, and I knew that I'd told someone. And I'd say my life changed again from that point, where it became more dissociated from what had happened. Because when you're taking a beating to that degree, you check out. I checked out, just somewhere else. So the reality of what's happening isn't happening. You're not connected with it. My mental health was poor. I believed that I'd be saved by Jesus. I was very devout, and after that beating I think I just gave up on prayer because it wasn't answered in the way that I needed it to be answered. And I needed the pain to stop, and I needed the hurt to stop, and it didn't. At the age of 13 I was just walking around town by myself, saw a message on a public toilet wall, young boys wanted. I phoned that number, thinking that I'm going to be looked after and I'm going to be loved, because what was going on inside of me was that I am unlovable. And even though you don't call it that at the time, that's what you're experiencing at the time, as a belief. I'm not enough. I call this number, this guy comes, picks me up, takes me to his bedsit. Turns out he's a paedophile and experienced significant sexual abuse, and again didn't like it. Knew once I was in the house something was up. Didn't have the wherewithal, didn't have the strength in me to say I don't want this, I'm going. And again, whatever happened happened. I didn't like it, it was painful, and now I had some fears because my whole neck was marked up. Thought, how am I gonna get out of this one? What am I going to say to my brothers, to my sister, to my parents? So I leave there, I go home, and the explaining I do is I'll give a tall story saying, oh, met some bird on a train, had sex, this, that and the other, just talking absolute rubbish, and no one questioned it. And because no one questions anything that you ever say. That's what I found out. So anything that you say is plausible, believable, and further keeps the truth from outing, because I'm so ashamed of it. Because what's gonna happen if I do say it? You know, someone's gonna go, ugh, you're ugly, or and reject me again, because that's, you know, what those abuses do. That's just how they left me feeling. I start drinking heavily at the age of 15. At the age of 16, I went to an alcohol advisory service in Rugby and said, I need some help. And I don't think they'd ever seen, I'm assuming they hadn't seen someone like me there before. And then she gave me a drinks diary and said, oh, just come back next week and fill in this drinks diary. And in my mind thought, well, I'm going to go out and drink for another week and come back and see you. And I was like, it's off, it's not happening. Because I knew that I couldn't do it. So I'm going there looking for someone to help me, and they helped me immediately. That's what I needed. And I didn't go back, and I didn't ask for help again for a number of years, maybe 10, 12, 15 years. And I didn't appreciate that there's this accumulation of trauma that's going on within me that is messing with me. I'm 20 years old, I got nicked for robbery. And I went to jail for a year to a day, and it's probably one of the worst experiences I've had in my life. It was a hate factory, that's the only way I can describe that, where there's violence every day, real lawlessness, real mental health issues going on for people, myself included, where I thought, am I going to kill myself in this sentence? Is that the way out of this pain that I'm feeling? And then you come out of your cell and you have to put the mask on. I left the prison. My family was still there, took me back. And that's a theme that had been going on through my life, because they didn't know what to do to fix me, but they didn't abandon me. But what was happening was the drug addiction was separating me from them more and more and more and more. I came back, and then everyone was into heroin. So thus begins my 10-year journey with heroin. I'm completely unemployable. I'm completely addicted to drugs. I think it's because I'm a bad person, and I think this is it. I'm at that point in my life where I'm not considering I'm not worth it, I just know I'm not worth it. I'm not considering, am I lovable, is there, you know, hope for me? I'm just completely hopeless, and I know that, and I can feel that. So it's just pain, 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 suffering, 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 going on and on and on. I remember going to a family wedding, and my father spoke to me and said, and he was devastated. He pulled me to the side. He said, you know what, I think the next time I see you, it might be in a box. So I love you, here's some money for some food, please sort yourself out. You know, that was the best he had at the end of this thing. All he had was his love for me. And I felt that, and I knew it was real, and it meant something to me, but it didn't arrest the addiction. And that physical dependency, that psychological dependency, and that obsession in the mind, it did not affect that. And that's painful, where you think there's something so powerful that love doesn't conquer it. Oh, I could see it for what it was, and I did something drastically different about it. Then eventually I found a house, and it happened to be a dry house, and it was this girl, and she says, oh, they live a couple of houses down. Brilliant. Gone there, knocked the door, opened the door, I've just walked in, I've said, you've got to look after me, you've got to look after me, you've got to look after me. And they went, all right. So I had some drugs to help with a detox. One of the lads was saying, oh, give it to God, give it to God. So I threw the pills down the toilet. 4 or 5 hours later, I'm thinking, oh, you know, what have I done? This is a nightmare. But went through the withdrawal process, and it was a nightmare, and it is a nightmare, and you know, but only for a short period of time. Physically, you know, you're very unwell. And then I sobered up, and these two guys in particular took me to 12-step meetings, showed me a community that I could be part of, and they totally looked after me for a couple of weeks. And then I had to go back to my own bedsit, And to paint a picture, the bedsit was like a carpet on a carpet on a carpet. No food, no nothing in there, blood all up the walls. And that's where I started the recovery journey. And all I had at the beginning was this willingness to do something different, and this modicum of a belief in myself that I'm gonna do enough to get through the day, and that's going to be enough because I never want to go back to where I've just come from. And I engaged in this support, I engaged in the group support, I engaged in that 12-step program, and then come a point in time where I better get a job then, because the dole isn't gonna, and the benefits aren't gonna look after me, and I don't want to remain like this for the rest of my life. Went and got a job, and things moved on from there pretty rapidly. 2 years after I'm in recovery, I reconnect with my on-off girlfriend, and we start dating again, get our flat together, start having a laugh, leading a good life. When you don't do drugs, when you don't drink, when you don't smoke, you generally got a bit of money in your pocket. So, God, we'd eat out in a restaurant or get a takeaway pizza, which was just like, you know, wow, I've never done that before. And because every penny you've ever had goes on the drugs. It just, you know, literally, you'd buy a toilet roll for yourself and you'd be like, look, I've got some toilet roll. You'd have milk for tea and coffee and things like that. So, and it was brilliant, and it was totally in this bubble and this, you know, cloud nine kind of thing. Because you haven't got any responsibilities. You're just loving life because you're clean, and that is enough. And we'd be going down Bournemouth Beach, skinny dipping, swimming, playing frisbee, physically connecting with yourself again. I asked Nicole to marry me, and I had to ask her 3 times because she didn't believe me at the... I won't say what she said, but she didn't believe me. I went down on my knee, I'm like, Nicole, will you marry me? And she thought I was taking the mick. And she said no, and then she copped on that I was actually being serious, and she says yes. And I'm so ill prepared for life, right, that I hadn't even considered buying an engagement ring. We got married 18 months later. A year after that we had our first child, Finn. And all these, you're busy, you're working, and life is throwing up stuff for you to connect with. You got your new friendship group, doing this self-reflection, really trying to get into serving other people. So all along this time, before we had children, we would have alcoholics in our flat, drug addicts in our flat, trying to get them clean, trying to get them detoxes, trying to take them through a process that's going to offer up the platform for them to heal. A couple of years after that, we have Jimmy, and we're building our family. We both work in the drug and alcohol field. I feel like we're really contributing to community for people that have suffered with the addictions, with the alcoholism, and maybe with those abuses that I've talked about. And then what happens at a certain point is you get a handle on that, you're enjoying yourself, and then the past starts churning up, that dynamic starts churning up, where you don't feel right, or where you recognise trouble is still inside you and you don't feel connected. And then it dawned on me that I need to go to the police. The penny's dropped, and I don't know why it took so long for the penny to drop, and I thought, this bloke who sexually abused me is a paedophile, may well be out there doing the same to other kids, and it devastated me. And then I thought, okay, I can do something about that, I can tell the police. And then with that, knowing that I was going to do that, I just almost fell apart. I was terrified. My voice was shaking, my heart was shaking. But what I had that was different was I was in recovery, I was committed to change, I was with someone that I was committed with Nicole, and we were married, and we were, you know, we're doing our thing, and I told her what I was going to do, because she knew things that had happened to me in my life, and I knew things that had happened to her in her life. But I laid that vulnerability at her feet and told her I am absolutely terrified, and this is something that I need to do. And what she did is she supported me to do that. Shame is so toxic and damaging to a person's spirit, sense of community, a sense of being part of. And the idea that people can suffer in that way hurts me. And because I've overcome all those difficulties, I want to offer that to other kids or families that are going through that experience, to say, if you've suffered, you can learn how to suffer less. You can be okay, you can heal again. And if you're in danger of going down that road, I just want to share my story in the hope that it can make someone, instead of going like that, just go like that and do something different.